is Rabbi Jen Queen. I am the Director of Engagement and Reform Rabbi at Harvard Hillel and one of the Jewish chaplains for the Harvard University Chaplains. And welcome back to our spring edition of Sustaining Practices. Rachel and I were so thrilled with how things went last semester that we wanted to bring it back and put a new spin on it for the spring. So for those who joined us last semester, welcome back. For those who are joining for the first time, welcome, welcome. So the Sustaining Practices for Perilous Times series is an opportunity to feature both Harvard University chaplains as well as faculty, administrators, and university staff offering insight into their spiritual practices. And we're defining spiritual practice really broadly as an opportunity to showcase an array of multimodal practices, really like the breadth and depth of what spirituality means and what spiritual practice can mean. Anything from prayer and poetry to movement and mindfulness, cooking and creating meaning in whatever way speaks to people and feeds people and gives them energy and courage to move forward in this very difficult time. I am thrilled to be joined today by Rachel Lakin, who is my partner in practice, my co-host of this experience normally. She is the Multi-Faith Engagement Fellow at Memorial Church, a recent Harvard Divinity School grad, and she will be presenting, as well as Reverend Adam Lawrence Dyer, the lead pastor at First Unitarian Church of Cambridge and Harvard's Unitarian Universalist chaplain. So at this point, I'm going to kick it over to them. I will drop links to their resources in the chat, and really excited to be here. Thanks y'all so much for joining us.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Rabbi Jen, and hello all. Fun to see you on this call, and I'm excited to be presenting this time. So the practice that I'm going to talk about is the practice of reading in Chavruta. And if you saw that the theme of this week was embodied practices, you might be like, why is reading one of these things? So I'm going to talk about really why I think that this practice of reading and the spiritual practice is one that includes our whole bodies and like the totality of who we are. So Rabbi Jen just put the link in the chat. You can pull it up. It just has some kind of definitions of things that I'm going to be talking about. But before I kind of get into it, I want everyone to kind of, if you'll indulge me, do a little bit of picturing of something that I'm going to describe. So you can close your eyes. You don't have to. You can just think about it, whatever. So I want you to think about a time where you read something that felt like it was something that you needed in your life. It could be a book, it could be an academic article, it could be a magazine article, anything. But think about something that you read that you really needed. Maybe when you read it, it was something that you were like, this was written for me. Maybe it's something that you couldn't stop thinking about. What did that feel like in your body? What did it make you want to do? I just want you to sit with that image for a little bit. What did you feel like when you read something that you felt like you needed in your life? So I want to invite you to keep thinking about that. Keep feeling it in your body. I just want to share a little bit of what that was like for me. And I'll also invite you, if something popped into your mind, like a book or an article, please put that in the chat. Like, what was that text for you that made you feel like, wow, this text sees me, this author sees me and who I am. So for me, I remember it incredibly clearly. It was my first year of divinity school. I read this article called "The Virgin in the Brothel and Other Anomalies." by Rachel Adler. It was this article in which Rachel Adler is a Jewish theologian, and in the article she talks about this woman Beruria, who is a character in a number of stories in the Talmud, which is a collected kind of works of Jewish commentary on Jewish law. And she talks about seeing this woman in these stories who can't possibly be a real woman, who's like really just created by the like wanderings of these men in the Talmud. And she talks about like when she read this, she realized for the first time how she needed to be present in the conversation about Talmud, and how her teachers couldn't possibly have imagined her life, and that she was writing herself into it, and when I read it, I felt like, wow, she's like opening up the space for me to be here. So that's kind of like that moment of me reading this text. What happened is I was sitting at the kitchen table in my apartment at that time. I read this text and I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I like jumped up from the table. I like walked around the house to see if any of my roommates were not busy, and was just like, can I tell you about this? And like ranted to them for a long time. And that kind of started my fascination with this practice of studying texts, particularly studying Talmud in Chavruta. So what is Chavruta? I'm going to share my screen and just show you this. Not this. This. So what is Chavruta? It's a practice of studying text in pairs. The word Chavruta refers to like the pair of students who learn together. It also refers to the process of learning in a pair. And it's also the word used to refer to each of the two members who are engaged in that process of Chavruta. And the point of this process is to say our conversation is as central to our understanding of this text as the text itself, that what we can do together in parsing through this text and making meaning of it, that matters. And that brings us into the lineage of all of the other people who have studied this text throughout time, across space, in a number of different settings. And so as a spiritual practice, the idea of being in Chavruta is that you have one person who you continuously read text with on a regular basis. For some people, that might be every day. For example, if you're in rabbinical school, if you're studying to become a rabbi and you have a Chavruta you might learn with for multiple hours a day for years on end. Or in my case, I have a friend who I Chavruta with. Her name is Tali. We meet once a week. We read in advance of the week, usually a few chapters of some text from the Torah. Right now we're working our way through First Kings, which is an experience. I had never really sat down and read First Kings before, but that's what we're doing. So the two of us, what we do is we read in advance, and then we meet on Zoom and we talk about what we read. We read some parts over again together. We go line by line. We talk about the parts that stood out to us. And in the process, one of the things that I think is the most special about this is that we really end up having conversations about everything, from our lives to our theologies. Recently, our main topic of conversation for us has been like, what is our own relationship to God and text? And how do we make sense of the fact that there's like a ton of people who get killed every chapter that you read of something from the Torah? And so for me, the process of reading with Tali is one in which I understand so much more about the text, and also in which I continue to deepen my relationship with her as a friend. So that's a little bit of context for like how I practice this. I want to say just a few more things, and then I will look at a text together. We're not going to do it in Chavruta because I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but we'll look at a text together. So one more thing about Chavruta is that I think it fills a number of purposes. One, I think it's a devotional activity, right? This is something where you are studying with another person and you're really thinking about what is our inheritance of this text? Like how do we have ownership over it? How do we have responsibility to it, and how do we have responsibility to each other? It's also a multi-generational conversation. The cool thing about Talmud is that if you've ever seen a page of Talmud, the way that it looks, and I'm gonna share this. Oh, I can't. I'll share it in a little bit. If you've ever seen a page of Talmud, the way that it's laid out is that there's like the central thing in the middle of the page that is called the Mishnah, and it's like one little tiny bit of legal, of like a legal thing, basically, a law. And then all around it in different columns are a ton of different opinions arrayed on the page. Some from the 6th century, some from the 11th century, some from the 13th century, all around. So you're looking at a page and there's a conversation happening there. And then you're also in conversation with your chavrusa around that. So you're part of the same tradition as the people who wrote it and as the people who have weighed in on it throughout the centuries. So in that way, it's a multi-generational conversation. And I think it's also an exercise of communal responsibility. One of the teachers who I've had the privilege to learn from, Lainey Solomon, they work at a place called Svara, which is called a traditionally radical yeshiva. Their whole mission is to have, like, open up a space for queer folks to read Talmud. They're incredibly awesome. I'll put a link to them in the chat at some point later in the call. But Lainey said that essentially the work of reading Talmud is saying, how is this something that is part of my tradition? How is whatever argument that's playing out on the page something that mattered to the people who wrote it? And how is it something that is relevant in my life? And how can bringing my own self and my chavruta to it, how can we both make it responsible to our current situation, whatever we're currently going through, and how can we work to also hold it accountable to what we need it to be? And that is a question to ask when we're engaging with really hard text, difficult text, ones like what I said about, like, if there's an example of someone being killed or many, many people being killed, or, you know, stories that we don't actually love to read. And it's a case when there's something really joyous in the text, right? How do we make it accountable? How do we think about it? How do we want to incorporate this into our life or not? And I think all that is opened through the practice of chavruta. All right, I'm gonna stop talking for now because I feel like I've gone on for a long time. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna show the just one very short text here. And this is the, like, very short line of text from Pirkei Avot. And this is essentially one of the places in Jewish text where we get the foundation for why we would study in chavruta. And so I'm going to invite you to just look at this top part right here, not the second one. You can also get this on your own screen through the link in the chat. So let's just look at this together. Okay, I'm gonna read the second part, which I think is the most important part of it right here. Okay, so I'm not going to get into too much context. We're just going to deal with it. But actually, I'm going to go with this part. Appoint for thyself a teacher, and acquire for thyself a companion, and judge all men with the scale weighted in his favor. All right, let's just take a second. I would love to know if folks are willing to unmute and share. What do you make of this? What are your first reactions just to this very, very short phrase? You can also put things in the chat if you prefer.
Can I ask just a clarifying translation question?
Yeah, totally.
The scale weighted in his favor, is the his referring to all men, or is the his referring to the judge or the companion or the teacher? Who is the his?
Great question. So the his in this translation, I think, is referring to like the person, the man who is being judged. Yeah. Jennifer, I think you were going to jump in and say something.
Yeah, well, I am intrigued by the having the scale weighted in his favor, assuming, I read that as assuming positive intent or sort of a desire to collaborate and share. There's something positive that I'm reading in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll take like maybe one. Oh, sorry, go for it.
I was gonna say, I agree with Jennifer. I interpret that as like a give people the benefit of the doubt, read them very generously, but also, you know, to a point, for thyself a teacher. Like, yeah, it's just like it's a balanced companionship.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the cool thing about this text is, right, that all of these things are necessary. A teacher, a companion, and then that in having both of those things, you can then turn to judge other people in a way that is compassionate and in a way that is generous to them. For the sake of time, I'm going to actually stop there and turn it over to Adam, but we could get so much more into this. Thank you all. And Adam, I'll pass it over to you.
Wow, thank you, Rachel. That's a wonderful, wonderful practice. Something I didn't know about, even having gone through divinity school, and I'm glad to know about. And I think it is a reflection of all the different ways that we can enter into a space of sustained, I don't know what to call it, practice. There you go. So thank you all for inviting me here, allowing me to spend just a little bit of time sharing with you a little bit of something that comes not necessarily from my own tradition, but comes from my life and my journey that brought me into ministry. And that is the practice of working with doing a body scan. I'm sure, excuse me, many of you have probably done this kind of a thing, in whether it be meditation or sometimes in group settings, people will get people together and say, everybody breathe together, that sort of thing. I think Rabbi Jen just put into the chat the link to, it's a very, very short document. It's nothing deep or profound, just a list of sort of what I'm going to be walking us through right now. And this will be quick. This will be very quick. And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that this could be, is quick, accessible, easy, and something that you can always take with you wherever you go. So my background, before I was a minister, an ordained minister in the Unitarian Universalist Church, I was actually a body worker. I was a massage therapist and also a personal trainer and fitness guru and all that kind of stuff. But really, really heavy in massage therapy and body work and Reiki and energy work. And doing that kind of work, I got a really wonderful sense of what it means to have a body. And that is actually what brought me into ministry, is this idea that we can always claim our own bodies. It is the most sacred thing that we can do, is recognize that we have this glorious thing called a body, that we can respect it, that we can honor it, and that we can bring intention and well-being to it at any time we want, anywhere we are, because where we are is where we are. Our bodies are with us wherever we go. And so I just want to walk through a little bit of what I wrote up as a way to approach a body scan. A body scan can go over a long period of time. It can involve creative visualization of other locations. It can do many, many, many different things, but I just wanted to share some basics to what a body scan can be for you as a practice. Beginning with the most basic of all things is a comfortable setting. That could be sitting, it could be laying down, it could be standing. It could actually be on the tee, in the middle of a crowd even. But it's important to be able to find a sense of, okay, I am going to be present with myself. which brings you to the second point that I put on my little list of things here, which is intention. So after you are aware of your setting and your comfortable setting, bringing intention to what the body scan is going to be. Bringing an intention that says it's an observation, that it is not about judgment or fixing. I think too often we're given messages about our bodies that we need to judge them in some way or fix something that is wrong. Or, if we're in pain, it's like, oh, how can I fix this? This is more about saying, I'm going to bring awareness to where and what I am in this moment. No matter what it is, I'm going to bring awareness to it. And I put the word grace on my list as well, because grace for me, as a Unitarian Universalist, is a little bit different than it comes from than the idea of grace as it comes from Christian settings, but it comes from the same spirit. This idea that there is goodness, there is abundance, there is love, quite frankly. So bringing those intentions to this practice, then it's a matter of choosing a progression that could be based on feeling, could be based on temperature, could be based on pain, it could be based on some sort of relief that you're looking for, or anxieties that you're looking to understand better. But a progression, moving through a sequence that is connected to your body. And I'm going to talk us through a very, very quick scan of just one body part, and might be using myself as an example here. But then at the very end, always making sure to come back to a place of gratitude, being able to thank yourself. It's almost prayerful, being able to thank yourself for bringing awareness to your body, to taking the time to say, I have a body, I am embodied, I love this thing that I carry with me everywhere I go. So just to talk you through a little bit of how this can work, excuse me, lunch. I'd love to talk through maybe a body scan using just hands. And I'll invite you to join me in this scan, or not. You can simply listen. It's up to you. But I begin by saying to myself, I am comfortable. I am here. I am whole. I take a few breaths, nice deep breaths. If you would like, I invite you to go ahead and just breathe in your natural time, in your natural way. Just breathing, bringing some ease to how you are in your body in this moment. Recognizing that you have a moment now to be present with one aspect of your body, your hands. And so I'm going to ask you to place your hands in some place where they are comfortably aligned with your body. If you're a visual person or need the visual aid of being able to see them, someplace where you can see them. If not, that is okay. Just taking a moment to breathe again and to be aware of your hands wherever they are placed. My hands are on my knees right now. I have my hands placed on my knees with my palms facing down. And as I'm breathing, the first thing I'm aware of is my need for taking this time. And so I want to set the intention that this is good, this is nurturing, this is real. The next thing I'm aware of is the temperature of my hands. And so as you are aware of your own body, how do you feel the temperature of your hands right now? Are they cool? Are they warm? Thinking again about your hands. Do you have pain in your hands? Is there some sense that maybe they have been damaged or hurt, or maybe they feel strong in this moment? Bring awareness, intention, and fullness to your hands. As I'm thinking more about my hands, as I'm placing more attention and awareness Through my hands, I can feel my pulse in my hands, in each finger. I invite you to think about, where is your pulse in your hands? Is it strong? Is it weak? Is it stronger in different parts of your hand? Maybe your thumbs, maybe your index fingers. Maybe it's not so much a pulse, but a swirling sensation. Continuing to breathe, continuing to bring awareness to these hands. We'll take a very brief journey into some of the things your hands may have done over time. Maybe your hands have been creative. Maybe your hands have held children. Maybe your hands have written stories. Maybe your hands have held books. Be aware of the story of your hands. Still breathing deeply and holding on to the temperature, the stories, the awareness of these hands. And now I'm going to invite you to gently return to our space. I'm going to ask you to hold your hands up, clasp them together, and hold them together. And be aware of the sensation of each hand holding the other. This can be a position of prayer. It could be a position of strength. But let it be a position of gratitude. And in this moment, give gratitude for your hands and all they have meant to you in your journey. Another deep breath. And we release. Amen, and blessed be. Little body scan, little instruction in body scan. You can do this anywhere, anytime, with any part of your body, your whole body. But I invite you to always take a moment to be grateful for your body.
Thank you so much to Rachel and Adam. And to all of you who came to practice with us. I am really excited about the strong start that we've had to this semester series. You can join us next week and every week until April 29th at the same time, at the same link. So you can just go ahead and save it in your calendars. Yeah, we will reconvene at the same time next week for a little gratitude practice. We're very excited. I'm looking forward to that. So thank you all so much. Have a great night and hope to see you all soon.